Well, that's it for tonight here on BBC2. Speak to you again tomorrow, but for now, until the Learning Zone, we join the BBC News channel.
Hello, I'm Sam Shetty and this is Sport Today. Coming up on this programme, Fernando Llorente shines again as Athletic Bilbao thumps Schalke in the Europa League. Sri Lanka win their first test on home soil since the retirement of Murali, beating England by 75 runs. And Sharapova powers into the final of the Sony Ericsson Open in Miami at the expense of Caroline Wozniacki. Yeah, hello there. Fernando Llorente once again showed why he is one of the most sought-after strikers in Europe after he scored twice in Athletic Bilbao's 4-2 win over Schalke in the first leg of the Europa League quarter-final. Both of Schalke's goals came from another Spanish striker, the prolific Raúl. Elsewhere, a goal from Salvio in the 89th minute gave Atletico Madrid victory in another Spain-Germany clash. A 90th minute penalty from Xavier means Metalist Kharkiv will start the second leg against Portuguese side Sporting Lisbon with a vital away goal, as will Valencia, despite losing at Alkmaar. The second legs of all these ties takes place next Thursday. Let's though now hear from the victorious Bilbao coach.
I think it was a tough game over the course of 90 minutes, which surely had its balanced phases. And it's true that at times there was a danger that the game would turn against us and in favour of Schalke. But we still managed to stay on top and to fend off the many dangerous attempts on our goal. And in the last 30 minutes of the second half, we were able to improve our situation to the point that in the end we won, and we won well.
Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't think that Manchester United have had all the big refereeing decisions go their way this season. The manager of the English Premier League leaders was responding to claims from Manchester City's Patrick Vieira that United, in common with other big European teams, have benefited from decisions this season. On Monday, United should, in the opinion of many, have conceded a penalty at home to Fulham, which could have cost them vital points. But Fergie doesn't think everything has gone the way of his team this season.
It was a terrible decision this season at Old Trafford when Newcastle got the penalty kick, you know. And Tottenham could claim the same when Balotelli wasn't sent off and ended up scoring the winning goal. I mean, you could go through millions of things like that. But at the end of the day, I think maybe have a point that the smaller clubs feel that way. You know, they do.
Having embarked on an unbeaten run stretching to 18 matches, the French national side are likely to be regarded as one of the favourites to win the European Championships later this year in Poland and Ukraine. That's despite their inconsistent record in major tournaments in recent years. But a member of the great French team, which won both the World Cup and the European Championships, believes that the French have the ability to go all the way.
The French are always very good when you put them as an outsider position. There is contenders for the European Championship, like Holland, like Germany, Spain, but we part of the outsiders. And we are very good in this position because we put pressure on the opponents. And people in France are expecting things, you know, regarding the European tournament, not too much, because everybody is agreed of saying that we think it's too soon. The European tournament is too soon for the national side. Probably for the World Cup in Brazil, that's going to be the best chance we're going to have. With the generation we have very talented young players, so probably, but I think it depends as well of their mentality as well.
Oman's football team are now just one game away from appearing at this year's London Olympics after beating Uzbekistan 2-0 to win a three-team playoff in Vietnam. Oman will now face Senegal in a final eliminator to be played in Coventry in England on the 23rd of April. Both Oman's goals came in the first half. They were awarded a penalty in the 14th minute after a foul on the striker Walid Abdallah. The spot kick duly dispatched by Hussein Al-Hadri. They would double their lead on the stroke of half-time. This time a cross from the right, causing chaos in the Uzbekistan area, and Raid Saleh was the man to slot home the loose ball. England cricket captain Andrew Strauss believes that a poor first innings display with the bat was the major factor in his side's 75-run defeat to Sri Lanka in Galle. The tourists have now lost 4 straight tests after becoming the world's top-ranked side last year. England were bowled up for 264 on day 4 of the first test, chasing 340 to win.
From the lofty heights of being the world's top-ranked test-playing nation, a dose of reality for England. They've now lost their last 4 matches. This defeat to Sri Lanka follows a 3-0 series defeat to Pakistan. And when Kevin Pietersen was caught by Mahela Jayawardene early on day 4, England's prospects of achieving a remarkable win got even harder. Jonathan Trott, though, was giving it his best. A reverse sweep brought up his half-century. And his luck was in too, as Rangana Herath failed with this opportunity to dismiss him. Herath, though, had much more to offer this match. That said, Trott was getting the better of him. It was off one of his deliveries that he reached his 7th Test century with a boundary. But Herath finally saw off the persistence of his 5th wicket partner Matt Pryor, Lahiru Thirimane clinging on, earning the bowler his first 10-wicket haul. And he celebrated wicket number 11 when Dilshan caught Samit Patel. Dilshan was in great form and brilliantly ended Trott's innings off Suraj Randiv's bowling this time. That was that for England. Randiv and Herath polished off the tail. Herath finished with 6 wickets in an innings for the 2nd time in the match and earned the Man of the Match award. The teams meet again in Colombo next week. Lose that and England will lose their cherished #1 ranking too. Dominic Kane, BBC News.
Some tennis news now, and the 2nd seed Maria Sharapova has defeated 4th seed Caroline Wozniacki in the first of the women's semi-finals at the Sony Ericsson Open. Sharapova was inconsistent at 4-1 up in the first set. She lost the next 5 games to go a set down. But the Russian won the next 2 sets and took the match after a controversial line call and overrule in her favour. Wozniacki then refused to shake the umpire's hand. You'll see that in a second. Sharapova will now face the winner of the semi-final between Marin Bartoli and Agnieszka Radwanska next, looking to improve on her record of 3 defeats in as many finals in this competition.
I started off really well and, being very aggressive and solid, not making too many unforced errors. And then I backed off a little bit and gave her a chance to step in and take control of the rallies. And she gained that spark and confidence and won those 2 games. But, overall I'm happy that I came in the 2nd set and, and played aggressive again and maintained that until the last point of the match.
Well, that tournament is taking place in Miami, and so is this one. Argentine Juan Monaco is into the semi-final of the Masters after beating Mardy Fish in straight sets. Monaco, playing on his 28th birthday, was just too good for his higher-ranked opponent. His serve caused his American opponent problems throughout. He took the first set by 6 games to 1, and despite Fish putting up some more resistance in the 2nd set, he'd win that one 6-3 to seal victory in just 1 hour and 22 minutes. He'll play either defending champion Novak Djokovic or David Ferrer in the semi-finals. Pretty excited, wasn't it? England have named Stuart Lancaster as their full-time rugby union coach following his success with the side during the recent Six Nations tournament. Lancaster has been given the full-time head coach position until 2016, meaning that he will be the man at the helm when the World Cup takes place here in England in 2015. The 42-year-old was chosen ahead of the former South Africa and Italy coach Nick Mannett. He won 4 out of 5 Six Nations matches, and his first assignment as permanent coach will be a tour of South Africa later this year.
Yeah, I think it will get tough for us. I think it's getting tougher for all the Northern Hemisphere sides who are heading to the Southern Hemisphere. But if we want to be in a position by 2013, 2014, we've got a side ready that's going to win in 2015, we have to take on these challenges, and we can't go there with the mindset that we're making up the numbers or we're going there just to compete. We want to go there to compete and win, and we want to make sure we take on the challenge in the right way, respect the challenge, but equally I think it's exactly the right thing for us to do. And in terms of the development of this group and the journey that we're on, it'll be a great benchmark for us to see where we're at.
We finished this sport today with some golf news, and Ireland's Peter Lorre shot a course record 64 to take the first round lead at the Sicilian Open. The 38-year-old from Dublin carded 9 birdies in his round with just 1 bogey as he finished the day on 8 under par. That was enough for a 1-shot lead over a trio of players. Lorre's only previous victory on the European Tour was at the Spanish Open in 2008. One of those trio is the Dane Soren Kjeldsen. He had briefly held the course record after his opening round of 65. And that is about all we have time for on this edition of Sport Today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you really soon. Bye for now.
Good morning. It really has been glorious, the weather over the last week or so. We know it can't last forever. Unfortunately, it's going to change as we move towards the weekend. So one more sunny day today. If you can make the most of it, my advice is do so, because the satellite picture already shows a bit of an invasion of cloud up into the far northwest by the end of Thursday. That's going to continue to push steadily south and east, infringing across the far northwest of England and North Wales for dawn. And we'll also see a little bit of cloud just pushing in onto those North Sea coasts. Again, another chilly start under some clearer skies, and a little bit of patchy mist and fog around first thing, not set to last at all though. So as we start our day, there will be more cloud, and that cloud thick enough into the far north and west of Scotland for a little bit of drizzle, unfortunately. Here it will stay pretty grey throughout the morning. Temperatures 6 or 7 degrees. Into eastern areas of Scotland, again, you'll see some sunshine. So a bit of a west-east divide across northern England. The northwest through the Lake District and down into North Wales will start off cloudy and grey, and it may take its time in that cloud from burning back and some sunshine coming through. Central and eastern areas, yes, starting off rather nippy, but again, gloriously blue sky, sunshine, a beautiful day in prospect. Now, as the day does continue, that cloud will slowly start to burn back towards the coast, and we will see a brighter, sunnier afternoon progressing, but maybe Western Scotland and Northern Ireland keeping some cloud, and here a disappointing feel to things in comparison to recent days. You can see the brighter greens here denoting the cooler feel to things, around 14 degrees. We still keep the warm yellows and oranges, which means 20-21 degrees as a high, perhaps into the southeast corner. Now, the high pressure continues to drift off into the Atlantic, and it's allowing a northerly flow to come down. A weak weather front will bring more cloud rather than rain as it pushes across the country, but it will certainly introduce a different feel to our weather. We've been seeing temperatures perhaps into the low 20s over the last few days, a significant drop in the feel of things as we move towards the weekend and into Monday. We'll see temperatures around the average for the time of year. So on Saturday, you'll notice the difference from the word go. It's going to be a cloudy, grey old start to our day, slowly brightening up in one or two spots like West Wales or far northeast, but temperatures 11 to 14 degrees. There's a greater chance of seeing a little more sunshine perhaps on Sunday, but those temperatures still disappointing, and it will feel noticeably cooler than of late. Take care.
Conversation.
So would you say that the Andrew Marr Show is television art at its most sublime?
Well, you don't exaggerate.
It's a sort of kaleidoscopic sort of mayhem.
I'm not saying it's not controversial. Basically, it does what it says on the tin.
And would you say that the presenter is effortlessly charismatic?
Rubbish, frankly. I mean, let me sort of qualify that.
No thanks. Well, just tell them when the show's on then.
It happens every week. Cheers, man.
That's right. Sunday mornings, 9 o'clock, BBC One.
Hello and welcome to Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore.
And I'm Kasia Madeira in London. The headlines this hour. Police clash with protesters in Spain ahead of government plans to slash spending by tens of billions of euros. Maverick politician George Galloway claims victory in a UK by-election, beating Labour into second place.
The world is waiting. Arab leaders meeting in Baghdad urge Syria to accept the UN-backed peace plan. Burma's battle for democracy. Will Sunday's historic election signal a shift in power? It's 9 in the morning here in Singapore.
And it's 2 in the morning here in London. Broadcasting to viewers on PBS in America and around the world, this is Newsday. Hello Hello and welcome. Spanish police have fired rubber bullets to disperse a crowd in Barcelona during demonstrations backing a general strike. On Friday, budget reforms will be announced which will axe tens of billions of euros of spending, adding to cuts that have already squeezed public services. Spain is in its second recession and has the highest level of unemployment in the EU. Our Europe editor Gavin Hewitt has sent this report from Madrid.
The cry, join the general strike. Spanish unions are angry over plans making it easier to hire and fire workers. Angry too with austerity cuts. Protesters burnt bins to block roads. In Barcelona, rioters threw rocks at banks and started fires. The police responded with rubber bullets. Support for the strike was patchy, but hundreds of thousands joined a demonstration in Madrid tonight. Spain is currently the country causing most concern in the Eurozone. The EU insists it must cut its deficit, but the economy is shrinking.
We have an economy in recession, with unemployment going up from the 24%, and at the same time, we have to implement spending cuts.
Here are the problems. There is still a hangover from the housing crash. On average, there are around 140 evictions every day. Protesters regularly try and stop them. Teresa Cabrero lost her home this week. House prices are still falling, deepening concerns about the debt held by Spanish banks. Then there's unemployment. Eduardo and Maria Jose are brother and sister, both out of work. Unemployment is at 24% and still rising.
In my last interview, there were about 40 or 50 candidates trying to get the job.
A further problem is the debt of the regions. Valencia has the highest debt, a region struggling with the legacy of having backed prestigious projects. Valencia splashed out on a dazzling city of arts and sciences. The only problem, debt, still around 600 million euros. Castellón Airport glimmers in the sun. The cost, 150 million euros of public money, but there was no demand and no plane has ever landed here. Those who support the government say there is no alternative to austerity.
The race is not taking decision in favor of the austerity. Because austerity, for me, austerity is to put order at home.
The crowds on the streets this evening know there will be a budget tomorrow which the government says will be very, very austere. The fear is that this country, already in recession, is being locked into a downward spiral. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Madrid.
Now, counting is continuing in the Bradford West by-election in Northern England. The winning candidate will replace the outgoing MP Marsha Singh, who resigned due to ill health. Labour have held the seat since 1974. Let's cross over there live now because our correspondent Chris Mason is watching events. And Chris, all eyes on the Respect Party candidate George Galloway.
Yes, all eyes for certain on George Galloway here. He is down there on the Count Centre floor in front of us, spending much of his evening surrounded by his supporters. They're all wearing beaming smiles. They're all pretty jubilant, and the contrast with Labour is very, very striking when it comes to demeanour. Labour's activists and Labour's candidate walking around ashen-faced, staring at the floor, staring at their smartphones, avoiding eye contact with journalists. It gives you some sense that of the scale of the upset expected. George Galloway arrived here at around about midnight and said triumphantly as he walked into this sports centre, not that he thought he'd won or that he might have won or he was confident of winning, but that he had won and won a huge victory. That was his confidence on the basis of what his activists had told him, looking at the ballots being taken out of the boxes and going through their initial checks. The latest estimate here is that we will get an official result within 15 or 20 minutes, but predicting the precise outcome and timings of by-elections is something that, well, it's very easy to get wrong, so who knows, but it looks like we're getting very close to an official result here.
Chris, I won't hold you to predict anything, but if George Galloway does win, he'll have overturned a Labour majority of nearly 6,000 votes. That's not a bad feat.
Absolutely. Respect were way down the order when it came to how they performed here in Bradford West at the UK general election almost 2 years ago in the summer or late spring of 2010. When Marsha Singh, the former Labour MP for this area, decided that he would stand down due to ill health, the expectation was a local Respect activist would run for them. Then it emerged that George Galloway, former Respect MP for Bethnal Green and Bow in London, former Labour MP for many years in Glasgow in Scotland, would fight the seat for Respect. He's a boisterous, energetic campaigner and has certainly brought those characteristics to this campaign. And that sense of presence and personality, and campaigning about withdrawing British troops from Iraq immediately, it would appear has resonated here.
Chris Mason in Bradford, thanks very much. And of course, we will be watching those results coming in, so do stay with BBC Newsday for that. Now, in other news, demand for petrol has soared across the UK after the government advised motorists to top up in case of a strike by fuel tanker drivers. Sales in some garages were reported to be 80% higher than usual. Ministers have rejected claims their advice caused panic buying. Now, Rico, a historic summit has been held in Baghdad. Tell us more.
That's right, Kasha. The first Arab League meeting held in Iraq since the fall of Saddam Hussein has focused mainly on the crisis in Syria. But despite the presence of the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, fewer than half the Arab League leaders traveled to Baghdad. From there, Wilder Davis reports.
It's cost a fortune in cash, and there's been a huge military effort to stage this summit, the first in Iraq for more than 20 years. Thousands of police and heavily armed SWAT teams on the streets of Baghdad, where there's also been a day-long curfew. Iraq's relations with some of its Arab neighbours are still tense, so it wasn't surprising that the leaders of many Gulf Sunni states stayed away. Others may have been deterred by the country's precarious security situation. 2 mortars landing not far from the conference centre just as the summit began won't have calmed any nerves. But the main topic on the agenda here, the crisis in Syria. Delegates formally supported a UN plan to end the fighting.
The Syrian government has written to the Joint Special Envoy, Mr. Kofi Annan, accepting his 6-point plan, which was endorsed by the United Nations Security Council. The world is waiting for commitments to be translated into action.
But even as they spoke, unverifiable footage emerged of mortar shells smashing into Homs, a town being blasted into submission. The commentator on the video appeals to Syria's Arab neighbours for help. In their absence, he then calls to God. These images show protesters in Aleppo coming under fire. They say the regime is not interested in dialogue until its opponents have been routed. If anything, the situation in Syria is getting worse. 9,000 people have been killed, but the army continues its offensive. As the delegates in Baghdad departed another lavish, if inconclusive, Arab League summit, they acknowledged the situation in Syria could take a long time to resolve. A degree of normality is returning to Baghdad, but there's still a huge security presence on the streets, and it cost a small fortune to stage this summit. But Iraq has already declared the whole thing a big success, even though on the major issue affecting the region, Syria, there has been little, if any, progress. Wilder Davis, BBC News, Baghdad.
For more on the Arab League Summit and the situation in Syria, I'm joined in our studios in Singapore by Michael Hudson, Director of the Middle East Institute at the National University of Singapore. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Hudson. The serious situation in Syria is currently ongoing, but it seems like there's not a lot of interest in the Arab League Summit, with just half of the Arab League leaders in attendance in Baghdad.
Well, I think it's not that they're not interested in the problem of Syria, but they have a lot of problems with Iraq itself. And the regime in Iraq now, under Nouri al-Maliki, he has steadily concentrated power in himself. And most of these Arab leaders who are Sunnis feel that al-Maliki is treating the Sunni community in Iraq badly, and that al-Maliki is too much under the influence of Iran. So he's not really an honest broker in their opinion, and that's why they're making their point by not sending their top leaders.
So there's a lot of regional gamemanship taking place right now in this Arab League summit. But what about the developments in Syria? It's gone from bad to worse. What other proposals can this summit come up with to try to resolve the situation there that hasn't already been discussed?
Well, what the UN has done, they've endorsed Kofi Annan's plan. The president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, has also endorsed the plan, but he hasn't done anything to implement it. The plan itself deals only with trying to stop the violence. It doesn't address any of the political issues, and the issue that it does not address, which is most important, is that it's not calling for Bashar al-Assad to step down. So Bashar al-Assad is fine to accept that, but the opposition doesn't like it very much. And there are many people, particularly in the opposition, who think that the whole Kofi Annan plan and the UN exercise and the Baghdad summit are really playing into the hands of the Syrian regime because it gives them more time to continue to carry out the very brutal violence against the Syrian protesters.
So, Mr. Hassan, how do you think will this all play out? The violence continues. Bashar al-Assad is still in power. Will it eventually be resolved?
My friend, there is no easy answer to this. I think this is going to go on for a long time. And even though it appears now that the forces of Bashar al-Assad are dominating and breaking much of the organized resistance, that resistance is still very deep, and there are reports that in fact it is spreading through other parts of Syria. So they may break it in one sense, but they're never really going to put it out. So in the meantime, Syria suffers. Some of the neighboring powers that don't want to see a strong Syria anyway, like Israel, may be perfectly happy to see the regime and the country remain in a sort of steady but rather broken state.
Michael Hudson from the National University of Singapore, a Middle East expert. Thank you, sir, for your insights. And you're watching Newsday on the BBC, live from Singapore and London. Still to come on the program, French gunman Mohamed Merah is buried in Toulouse after an intervention by President Sarkozy.
And after a difficult year, makers of the BlackBerry quit the consumer race to focus on business customers. Now let's take a look at what's making the front pages of the international newspapers. We'll start with Gulf News, which highlights the first summit of the Arab League in the Iraqi capital Baghdad in 2 decades. The article details the strong backing shown to UN envoy Kofi Annan's 6-point plan to pacify Syria. Now, an arresting photograph in the Financial Times, which we are having problems bringing you. It shows a police officer in riot gear barring access to Barcelona's stock exchange yesterday during a general strike over austerity reforms. And grim times for Britain lead The Independent, which warns the nation has slipped back into recession as its government struggles to fight off a row over new taxes and fears over the Eurozone. But not to fear, the Daily Telegraph says the European Union is preparing to extend part of what's called the Big Bazooka Bailout Fund and boost its firepower to more than $300 billion.
This is Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore.
And I'm Kasia Madeira in London. Our headlines this hour. Police have clashed with protesters in Spain ahead of government plans to slash spending by tens of billions of euros.
The maverick politician George Galloway has claimed victory in a UK by-election, beating Labour into second place. The French gunman who killed 7 people in the city of Toulouse has been buried at a cemetery near the city, only though after a row about just what should happen to Mohamed Merah's body. It took an intervention from President Sarkozy for the burial to go ahead. Simeon Patterson has more.
In the Muslim quarter of a quiet cemetery in Toulouse, the gunman responsible for France's worst terror attacks in years was buried. Around 20 men, mostly friends from the housing estates where he grew up, arrived for Mohamed Merah's funeral, hiding their faces from the media. It was the end of a saga in which no one seemed willing to accept his body. His father, who left France when Merah was young, had wanted him buried here in Algeria. But the authorities had refused permission, citing security concerns, according to Abdallah Zekri of the Muslim Council of France.
A request to transfer the body to Algeria has been issued. The town hall that received the request has said it is unwilling for natural reasons of security and potential threat to public order.
But with the grief of the past few weeks still very raw in the minds of the town's residents, following the brutal murders of 3 French paratroopers, a rabbi and 3 Jewish schoolchildren, before Mira himself was shot after a 30-hour standoff, there was little enthusiasm for him to be buried in Toulouse either.
I don't want it. My husband's buried over there. He shouldn't be buried here.
It took the intervention of President Sarkozy to force the local mayor to allow the ceremony. But with Mira's father threatening to sue the French state for his son's death, and against the backdrop of a heated French presidential campaign in which all sides are attempting to make political capital from the tragedy, it is unlikely to be the last time national politics intervenes in the tragic events of the past few weeks in Toulouse. Simeon Patterson, BBC News.
In Burma, 45 seats are being contested in by-elections across the country on Sunday. The result will not affect the balance of power, but it is the first time the main opposition party's leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, stands as candidate. Of the 45 seats being contested, 37 seats are in the 440-member lower house of parliament, 6 in the 224-seat upper house, and 2 in regional assemblies. 25% of seats in both houses of parliament are not elected and reserved for the military, with the military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party holding the majority. Aung San Suu Kyi's party, the National League for Democracy, won a landslide victory in the previous multi-party election in 1990, but the result was ignored by the then military government. The NLD chose not to participate in the last general polls in 2010. The vote is seen as a test to the nominally civilian government which has been in power for a year, and as an early rehearsal for general elections in 2015. For more now, I'm joined in our studios by Maureen Ang Thuin, Director of the Burma Project Southeast Asia Initiative. She's based in New York, but joins us now in our Singapore studios. Maureen, thank you so much for joining us. Wow, you were banned from entering Burma up until 2 weeks ago, your first visit in 2 decades. What was the experience like?
It was great. It was great. It hadn't changed that much. Thank goodness. You know, I recognized a lot of places, and everybody was very open. I even went to Naypyidaw, the capital, twice.
So, after having been there for 20 years, what are your thoughts about the forthcoming elections this Sunday? Do you think that they will be credible? Do you think that the government was honest that it will have fair, honest, and fair elections?
Yes, they have no choice, and there's over 150 observers watching, and a lot of people have cell phones, and they blog, they tell every small thing that happens before the news even gets out. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Indeed, everyone's confident that the elections will be credible this coming Sunday. Do you think that if it is indeed credible, the sanctions imposed by the West will be lifted eventually?
Yes, eventually. Yes. I think Europe is thinking of lifting some of their sanctions. They're not real effective anyway, the European sanctions. It's the American sanctions, but there are lots of American sanctions, and I think they will start being rolled back slowly, but not everything at once, just because they had one by-election.
So after the polls, what do you think should be the initiatives that could be put in place by the Burmese government to be able to achieve a full-fledged democracy going forward?
Well, I think they're going to have, they're doing the right thing. They're going to float the jat. So that's a huge thing to have to unify the currency, but that will take a bit of time. They've got to fix the financial system. They've got to get some regulations, some oversight. When they get some of those in place, I mean, then it's going to be a genuine transition. But I think America they're supposed to start full diplomatic relations. I think they should get an ambassador out there soon.
What do you think are still the risks in Burma going forward, economically and politically and socially?
Well, economically, it's so bad that there's nowhere to go but up. So we're just hopeful that won't, I mean, it's a risk, but it probably won't get worse. Politically, not everybody wants the transition. That or a transition that's going this fast. So there's some room for backlash and for anti-reformers getting getting more entrenched and impeding the reform. That's probably the biggest thing. There is always a threat of a coup. Constitutionally, you can do a coup.
What is your thoughts on human rights situation in Burma?
I think the human rights situation is still not good at all. In fact, in the ethnic areas, they're still having a lot of human rights abuses, and it's not being reported because all the news is being sucked up by Naypyidaw.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Maureen Ong Thuin, thank you so much for joining us on the BBC's Newsday.
New video footage has emerged of the man accused of killing an unarmed teenager in Florida. Some say the police surveillance pictures of George Zimmerman raise questions about his claim that Trayvon Martin attacked him. Mr. Zimmerman says he shot the 17-year-old in self-defense, which is legal in Florida and many other US states. Jonathan Blake reports from Washington.
George Zimmerman on the night of the killing. He's wearing the red fleece jacket witnesses described. Zimmerman told police Trayvon Martin punched him and slammed his head on the ground. Some claim a mark on his head could be the injury he suffered. Others point to a lack of blood as evidence he was unhurt. George Zimmerman was not arrested, but this footage shows he was handcuffed and questioned by the police.
Justice for Trayvon! Justice for Trayvon!
Trayvon Martin's death has sparked debate and protest across the United States. The hooded sweater he was wearing has become a symbol of calls for justice, which have reached the nation's capital.
Racial profiling has to stop, Mr. Speaker. Just because someone wears a hoodie does not make them a hoodlum.
From politicians to celebrities, many of whom have been voicing their opinions about the case on Twitter. The film director Spike Lee has apologised for posting what he thought was George Zimmerman's address. Trayvon Martin's family have called these pictures a smoking gun and evidence of a conspiracy against their son. But they prove little about what happened. And as the investigations into Trayvon's death continue, the 17-year-old's parents and many others are impatient for answers. Jonathan Blake, BBC News, Washington.
The struggling makers of BlackBerry are giving up, they say, on consumer markets. It's a very public acceptance that they've failed to compete with flashier competitors such as the iPhone. Research in Motion have also just announced quarterly results well short of expectations. The joint chief executive is resigning, and the company plans to focus on its core business subscribers and leave the leisure market to Apple and the Androids. But as our New York business correspondent Michelle Fleury points out, it's not even clear that that strategy will work.
After disappointing results, BlackBerry maker Research in Motion has said it wants to go back to its roots and focus on business customers. That's essentially where the firm made its name when it first started providing smartphones with secure emails and a small keyboard to type on. The problem is that since they first came onto the market, a lot has changed. They now face stiff competition from the likes of Apple's iPhone and also Android smartphones. And we've seen really from these results that this has cost the company dear. In their latest set of earnings, they've announced a net loss of $125 million and also the departure of several high-profile executives, including one of the co-founders. I think moving forward, the company is now trying to sort of regain some of its sort of glory from the past. The question is, will it be able to? Because certainly when it comes to its business area, it's actually suffered a couple of embarrassing service failures in the past few years that were very public, that caused a lot of damage. And we're also starting to see other smartphone makers, including the iPhone, beginning to encroach on BlackBerry's traditional area of expertise, which is serving the business customer. So it'll be interesting to see whether the new chief executive, Thorsten Heinz, can indeed turn this company around. Of course, investors will have limited patience because the company's share price has fallen more than 60% over the last year.
Michelle Fleury in New York. Well, BlackBerry's decline can only benefit the iPhone, but it hasn't been all good news for Apple. A new report commissioned by Apple has found that staff at some of the plants making its products in China are working illegal overtime. The manufacturers, Foxconn, have long been the focus of complaints about working practices. Both Apple and Foxconn have now promised a major review of employment conditions. Now, what would you do if you won $540 million in the lottery? Lottery fever has taken over in the US, where hopeful Americans are rushing to buy a ticket for the world's biggest ever jackpot. The Mega Millions prize pool, which will be drawn on Friday, has been growing steadily since late January. Good luck if you have a ticket. From Rico and from myself, thanks for watching BBC Newsday.
Good morning. It really has been glorious, the weather over the last week or so. We know it can't last forever. Unfortunately, it's going to change as we move towards the weekend. So one more sunny day today. If you can make the most of it, my advice is do so, because the satellite picture already shows a bit of an invasion of cloud up into the far northwest by the end of Thursday. That's going to continue to push steadily south and east, infringing across the far northwest of England and North Wales for dawn. And we'll also see a little bit of cloud just pushing in onto those North Sea coasts. Again, another chilly start under some clearer skies and a little bit of patchy mist and fog around first thing, not set to last at all though. So as we start our day, there will be more cloud, and that cloud thick enough into the far north and west of Scotland for a little bit of drizzle. Unfortunately, here it will stay pretty grey throughout the morning. Temperatures 6 or 7 degrees. Into eastern areas of Scotland, again, you'll see some sunshine. So a bit of a west-east divide across northern England. The northwest through the Lake District and down into North Wales will start off cloudy and grey, and it may take its time in that cloud from burning back and some sunshine coming through. Central and eastern areas, yes, starting off rather nippy, but again, gloriously blue sky, sunshine, a beautiful day in prospect. Now, as the day does continue, that cloud will slowly start to burn back towards the coast, and we will see a brighter, sunnier afternoon progressing, but maybe Western Scotland and Northern Ireland keeping some cloud, and here a disappointing feel to things in comparison to recent days. You can see the brighter greens here denoting the cooler feel to things, around 14 degrees. We still keep the warm yellows and oranges, which means 20-21 degrees as a high, perhaps into the southeast corner. Now, the high pressure continues to drift off into the Atlantic, and it's allowing a northerly flow to come down. A weak weather front will bring more cloud rather than rain as it pushes across the country, but it will certainly introduce a different feel to our weather. We've been seeing temperatures perhaps into the low 20s over the last few days, a significant drop in the feel of things as we move towards the weekend and into Monday. We'll see temperatures around the average for the time of year. So on Saturday, you'll notice the difference from the word go. It's going to be a cloudy, grey old start to our day, slowly brightening up in one or two spots like West Wales or far northeast, but temperatures 11 to 14 degrees. There's a greater chance of seeing a little more sunshine perhaps on Sunday, but those temperatures still disappointing, and it will feel noticeably cooler than of late. Take care.
She needs to get a grip and stop passing the buck.
They are putting the politics ahead of the economics.
That is real action to help real people.
Where Wales leads, let Scotland, England, Northern Ireland follow.
It is time for a new start, a new beginning.
He's too weak to lead his own party. Order! Order!
Real drama in full and uncut from the UK's only dedicated politics channel, BBC Parliament.
Have the latest opinion polls been a wake-up call for your leadership?
Aren't your policies now dead in the water?
Are the wheels about to come off the economy? Have you finally put the Euro question to bed?
The questions are ready. Now it's time for the answers. Andrew Neil presents the News Sunday Politics, looking at the big issues from Westminster and across the UK. Sunday at 12 on BBC One.
Hello, these are the latest headlines from BBC News. I'm Kasia Madeira. Police have clashed with protesters in Spain ahead of an announcement by the government on Friday to slash spending by tens of billions of euros. Rubber bullets were fired to disperse a crowd in Barcelona, while there were also protests in the capital, Madrid and other cities. The country's unemployment rate is 23%, the highest in the EU. Arab leaders meeting in Baghdad have called on Syria to immediately and completely implement the United Nations-backed peace plan. However, only 10 leaders from the League's 22 member states were at the summit. And the maverick British politician George Galloway has won the Bradford West by-election. The Respect Party got 18,341 votes. Labour, who were holding the seat, had 8,201 votes. So we are looking at live pictures. Let's cross over to listen to George Galloway there. Well, live pictures from Bradford, where George Galloway has won the Bradford West by-election. Let's cross over now to Singapore for Asia Business Report.
U.S. workplace investigators claim they have found serious violations at Chinese factories making iPhones and iPads. And Malaysian budget carrier AirAsia X begins cutting flights to Europe. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rico Hizon. An independent investigation has found workplace abuse at factories in China which manufacture iPhones and iPads for Apple. The U.S. Fair Labor Association says the violations include excessive working hours and unpaid wages at Foxconn factories. The inquiry follows the deaths of 2 people in an explosion at a Foxconn plant in eastern China, which has also been the site of several suicides. Foxconn says it will bring its working week in line with the Chinese legal limit of 49 hours by next year. Manoj Vora from the Economist Intelligence Unit joined me earlier, and I asked him how serious is this situation for Apple.
It's very serious, and it shows Apple is serious in proactively managing the issues that everyone has been talking about for many months at its factories in China. It's a very serious issue not only for Apple but for the entire electronics industry. Foxconn is a major supplier, supplies possibly close to 50% of the electronics output, so it is going to have an impact overall on the labor market in China.
How does this basically affect Apple's operations from a labor and supply standpoint?
I think it's unlikely to have any major disruption. Two things that we should notice is one, in this case, Apple and Foxconn are working in a collaborative manner to find a solution. And secondly, these changes about reducing the number of working hours, compensation for overtime, are going to be adjusted over a period of 1 year. So it's unlikely to be disruptive in the short term, but it will definitely be a game changer as far as the labor market in China is concerned.
And the release of this labor report is also in tandem with the visit of Apple CEO Tim Cook in China.
Absolutely. Well, one may argue that possibly this investigation was done at the behest of Apple. Apple is a member of that labor association. And that's why I said that it's their intent to proactively manage some of the things that people have been talking or allegations have been raised on Apple. So definitely strong intent by Apple to fix these issues, and in many ways it raises the bar for other firms in China.
Manoj Vora from the Economist Intelligence Unit. Well, the struggling manufacturer of the BlackBerry says it's giving up on consumer markets after failing to compete with flashier competitors like Apple's iPhone. The announcement comes as Research in Motion reported net losses of $125 million in the last quarter, while it's facing declining market share in other parts of the world. RIM's growth in Indonesia. Karishma Vaswani has more.
Indonesia is often called BlackBerry Nation. In fact, as a recognition of its commitment to this market, BlackBerry has even set up what it says is its largest store in all of Asia in Jakarta. But it hasn't been all smooth sailing for the company in Indonesia. In fact, it's faced regulatory hurdles with the Indonesian government over the setting up of data service centers in the country. Last year, it faced a public relations nightmare following a stampede at one of its product launches. And increasingly, BlackBerry is facing competition from the likes of the Android smartphone and the iPhone. I sat down with Gregory Wade, the head of Research in Motion's Asia division, and asked him why Indonesia is such an important market for the company.
There's such a strong, not only appetite for technology, and I often comment as well that folks in Indonesia are adopting BlackBerry in order to be able to enhance their lives as well as their livelihood. It's really resonating with people for fun purposes, and then also for driving their own business.
What about the stampede that took place following the sale of BlackBerry products in a Jakarta mall last year? An investigation was launched. Where are we at now?
We demonstrated an outward reflection and meaningful reflection to those who were involved in that event, who were suffered through that event. We also made some very public comments about ensuring that not only did we run our own investigation, which we did, but we also ensured that we focused in on any such events subsequent to never have a recurrence of that.
Gregory Wade from Research in Motion. Japan's cabinet has approved a bill aimed at increasing the country's sales tax rate from 5% to 8%. It's been at the top of the agenda of the Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda and must now go to Parliament. For the latest, let's cross over now live to Tokyo, where we're speaking to our BBC correspondent Roland Burke. Roland, this is a controversial measure.
Yes, it is. What's happened is the Cabinet has approved the bill, but now has to put it before Parliament. It's going to be very difficult to get it through. Already a junior coalition partner, the leader of a junior coalition partner in the government, has said his party is going to leave the government over this issue. What the government wants to do is increase the sales tax from 5% to 8% by 2014, and then up to 10% by the following year. The Prime Minister, Yoshihiko Noda, has said he wants to stake his political life on this, and that's exactly what he's doing, because this issue has been pure poison, fatal to the careers of every politician that's touched it before.
But according to many economists and analysts, Japan needs this increase in the sales tax because it could narrow the country's enormous budget deficit.
Yes, the national debt here in Japan is already the biggest as a proportion of GDP of any major industrialized country. The country is aging fast as well, a greater proportion of people over the age of 65. So social security costs are increasing rapidly too. So that's why the government wants to get this bill through, to try to narrow that gap and try to begin to restore Japan to fiscal health.
Roland Burke in Tokyo, thank you so much for that update. Moving now to other business and financial news in Japan. The country's industrial production in February fell by 1.2% from the previous month. The markets had been expecting a 1.3% rise. The industry ministry says falling output of automobiles and semiconductor production equipment led to the decline. It comes as new numbers showed a slight fall in unemployment from 4.6 to 4.5% in February, slightly better than economists' expectations. PetroChina has taken over U.S. oil giant ExxonMobil as the world's biggest listed producer of energy. The Chinese firm said it produced 886 million barrels of oil last year, the equivalent of 2.4 million barrels a day. In January, Exxon produced 2.3 million barrels per day. The news comes as U.S. President Barack Obama proposed scrapping subsidies and tax breaks for oil companies, raking in record profits. AirAsia X, a Malaysian long-haul budget carrier, begins cutting its European routes on Friday. The move comes as other carriers are threatening a trade war with Europe over the carbon emissions tax. Jennifer Pak has more from Kuala Lumpur.
This is one of the last planes that AirAsia X is flying to London. It's at least 80% full, which may seem to indicate that business is going well. Except the company says they have not been able to make a profit on any of their European flights for the last 9 months because of higher fuel costs and other things like the EU carbon emission tax. Now, the problems that they're facing is not unique to just this budget carrier. Other national airlines are facing the exact same problem. The difference is AirAsia X is one of the first to pull out of Europe. So what does this mean for budget travelers in Asia and the rest of the passengers in the region? I sat down with AirAsia X's boss, Azran Osman Rani, and began by asking him whether AirAsia X will ever return to Europe.
I wouldn't discount that possibility, but not in the short term. Perhaps in the later future, when the European economy has grown much stronger, taxation regimes become more reasonable, and the volatility of fuel prices normalizes, because it's not so much the absolute amount, it's the fact that it's increasing or changing is what's creating a bigger problem.
So I understand you're going to be growing your market and focusing more on Asia. Tell me a bit more about that.
Markets like Australia have been profitable and continue to offer much more growth prospects. Greater China, both China, Taiwan are also profitable markets for us to operate, and we believe that Korea and Japan are also markets that have a very promising potential.
Azran Osman-Rani, the CEO of Air Asia X. Let's now have a quick look at the markets. And Asian stocks are mostly lower this Friday as investors continue to follow developments in the U.S. equity markets, where stocks closed flat overnight, and unfolding developments in the Eurozone and concerns about its sovereign debt crisis. And those are the markets. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. I'm Rico Hizon. Bye for now.
Hello, welcome back to BBC Newsday with me, Kasia Madeira. Let's bring you a reminder of our breaking news, because in the last few minutes, George Galloway has won the Bradford West by-election. He polled more than half the votes to take the seat from Labour. Our correspondent Chris Mason has been watching events. He's there with the numbers for us. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, extraordinary figures here, Kasia, in the last 10 or 15 minutes. Very few people predicted a George Galloway victory for Respect here in Bradford, let alone the scale of the victory that he and Respect have achieved. A majority of a little over 10,000. To put that into perspective, they were way down the list of parties at the last general election here back in 2010. They were amongst the also-rans. They came into this campaign deciding that they would put their big name forward as their candidates. Earlier this week, they said, yeah, we think we can do relatively well, but certainly no certainty of victory. As the evening went on this last night and into the early hours, they became more and more confident. George Galloway so confident a couple of hours ago that when he arrived at the count centre, he said he'd won. I guess little wonder, because he had some sense then of just how the votes were stacking up for him.
And Chris, you say he was confident. Where did this confidence come from? Because it was real fighting talk. He'd announced he was the winner a long time in advance.
Yes, I think a lot of that confidence came from his activists getting advance sighting of the postal ballots, those votes conducted by post rather than in the polling stations in the last 24 hours or so. Also, there were activists from all the parties looking over at the counters here in the hall. They're just packing up now, as you can see. And from that, they were estimating what might be happening. And they were telling us mid-evening that they were increasingly confident from what they were seeing. But they couldn't be certain then because there was more ballot boxes still to be opened. But yes, by the time it got to midnight, several hours prior to the declaration, they were sufficiently confident to be as bold as they were when George Galloway arrived here for the final result.
And an incredible result, a 10,000 vote majority. That's remarkable. He'd overturned what Labour had a nearly 6,000 majority. Really just staggering, isn't it?
It is. Let's put this in context. Labour have held this seat for a generation. There's been a Labour MP for Bradford West since 1974. They've never had huge majorities, but pretty comfortable majorities throughout. It was a seat that the Conservatives hoped to snatch from Labour at the last general election. They didn't manage. Marsha Singh, the MP who stood down due to ill health, had a majority of about 6,000. There was a recognition within the Labour camp that George Galloway's appearance on the ballot paper was likely to split the left-leaning vote, but they were still pretty hopeful of getting their vote out, perhaps a reduced majority. They were still confident, at least until today and this evening, of victory. And then this, not just losing to George Galloway, being thumped by George Galloway and Respect, a huge result for him and a huge noise and presence. He will be in the House of Commons for certain.
And Chris, looking forward to that in the House of Commons, what kind of allies will he make, if any? What kind of friends? Will he be approaching the Green MP, for example?
I think he'll cut a pretty lonely figure, but a very vociferous figure in the Commons. He cannot stand the Conservatives. He is, of course, a former Labour MP. But most Labour MPs can't stand him either because they see him as somebody who was treacherous and left the party. So he'll be a lone voice, but a very loud one.
Chris Mason, thank you very much. Chris Mason with the latest from Bradford. So just to reiterate that, George Galloway has won the Bradford West by-election with a 18,341 votes. That's a 10,000 vote majority over the Labour Party, who came in second with 8,201 votes. Right, now let's get some sports news from Sport Today. Sanj has it for us coming up.
Hello there, I'm Sanj Shetty. This is Sport Today. Coming up on this programme, Fernando Llorente shines again as Athletic Bilbao thump Schalke in the Europa League. Sharapova powers into the final of the Sony Ericsson Open in Miami at the expense of Caroline Wozniacki. And Sri Lanka win their first test on home soil since the retirement of Murali, beating England by 75 runs. Hello there, welcome to the programme. Fernando Llorente once again showed why he is one of the most sought-after strikers in Europe after he scored twice as Athletic Bilbao came from behind to beat Schalke 4-2 in the first leg of their Europa League quarter-final. Both of Schalke's goals came from another Spanish striker, the prolific Raúl. Elsewhere, a goal from Salvio in the 89th minute gave Atletico Madrid victory over Hanover in another Spain-Germany clash. Both Metalist Kharkiv and Valencia grabbed potentially crucial away goals in their defeats to Sporting and Alkmaar. The return legs of all those ties are next Thursday. But let's now hear from the coach of the side with the most to celebrate so far, and that's Bilbao's Marcelo Bielsa.
I think it was a tough game over the course of 90 minutes, which surely had its balanced phases. And it's true that at times there was a danger that the game would turn against us and in favour of Schalke. But we still managed to stay on top and to fend off the many dangerous attempts on our goal. And in the last 30 minutes of the second half, we were able to improve our situation to the point that in the end we won, and we won well.
Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't think Manchester United have had all the big refereeing decisions go their way this season. The manager of the English Premier League leaders was responding to claims from Manchester City's Patrick Vieira that United, in common with other big European teams, have benefited from decisions this season. On Monday, United should, in the opinion of many, have conceded a penalty at home to Fulham, which could have cost them vital points. But Fergie doesn't think everything has gone the way of his team this season.
It was a terrible decision this season at Old Trafford when Newcastle got the penalty kick, you know. And Tottenham could claim the same when Balotelli wasn't sent off and ended up scoring the winning goal. I mean, you could go through millions of things like that. But at the end of the day, I think you maybe have a point that the smaller clubs feel that way. You know, they do.
It's March, it must be time for Fergie's mind games. Well, having embarked on an unbeaten run stretching to 18 matches, France are likely to be regarded as one of the favourites to win the European Championships later this year in Poland and Ukraine. That's despite their inconsistent record in major tournaments in recent years. But a member of the great French team, which won both the World Cup and the European Championships, believes the French have the ability to go all the way.
The French are always very good when you put them as an outsider position. There is contenders for the European Championship, like Holland, like Germany, Spain, but we part of the outsiders. And we are very good in this position because we put pressure on the opponents. And people in France are expecting things, you know, regarding the European tournament, not too much, because everybody is agreed of saying that we think it's too soon. The European tournament is too soon for the national side. Probably for the World Cup in Brazil, that's going to be the best chance we're going to have. With the generation we have very talented young players, so probably, but I think it depends as well of their mentality as well.
Oman's football team are now just one game away from appearing at this year's London Olympics after beating Uzbekistan 2-0 to win a three-team playoff in Vietnam. Oman will now face Senegal in a final eliminator to be played in Coventry in England on the 23rd of April. Both Oman's goals came in the first half. They were awarded a penalty in the 14th minute after a foul on striker Walid Abdallah, and the spot kick duly dispatched by Hussein Al-Hadri. They would double their lead on the stroke of half-time, this time a cross from the right, causing chaos in the Uzbekistan area, and it was Raed Saleh, the man who slotted home the loose ball. The defending champion and world number 1, Novak Djokovic, is through to the semi-finals of the Miami Masters after defeating Spain's David Ferrer in straight sets. The Serb will now face Juan Monaco after the Argentine beat Mardy Fish, also in straight sets. Monaco, playing on his 28th birthday, was just too good for his higher-ranked opponent. His serve caused his American opponent problems throughout. He took the first set 6-1, and despite Fish putting up some more resistance in the second set, he'd win that one 6-3 to seal victory in just 1 hour and 22 minutes. We'll stay in Miami, and second seed Maria Sharapova has defeated the fourth seed Caroline Wozniacki in the first of the women's semi-finals at the Sony Ericsson Open. Sharapova was inconsistent. At 4-1 up in the first set, she lost the next 5 games to go a set down, but the Russian won the next 2 sets and took the match after a controversial line call and overrule in her favour. Wozniacki refused to shake the umpire's hand afterwards, and Sharapova will now face the winner of the semi between Marion Bartoli and Agnieszka Radwanska, looking to improve on her record of 3 defeats in as many finals in this competition. The England cricket captain Andrew Strauss believes that a poor first innings display with the bat was the major factor in his side's 75-run defeat to Sri Lanka in Galle. The tourists have now lost 4 straight tests after becoming the world's top-ranked side last year. England were bowled out for 264 on day 4 of the first test, chasing 340 to win.
From the lofty heights of being the world's top-ranked test-playing nation, a dose of reality for England. They've now lost their last 4 matches. This defeat to Sri Lanka follows a 3-0 series defeat to Pakistan. And when Kevin Peterson was caught by Mahela Jayawardene early on day 4, England's prospects of achieving a remarkable win got even harder. Jonathan Trott, though, was giving it his best. A reverse sweep brought up his half-century. And his luck was in too, as Rangana Herath failed with this opportunity to dismiss him. Herath, though, had much more to offer this match. That said, Trott was getting the better of him. It was off one of his deliveries that he reached his 7th Test century with a boundary. But Herath finally saw off the resistance of his 5th wicket partner Matt Pryor, Lahiru Thirumane clinging on, earning the bowler his first 10-wicket haul. And he celebrated wicket number 11 when Dilshan caught Samit Patel. Dilshan was in great form and brilliantly ended Trott's innings off Suraj Randiv's bowling this time. That was that for England. Randiv and Herath polished off the tail. Herath finished with 6 wickets in an innings for the 2nd time in the match and earned the Man of the Match award. The teams meet again in Colombo next week. Lose that, and England will lose their cherished number 1 ranking too. Dominic Kane, BBC News.
England have named Stuart Lancaster as their full-time rugby union coach following his success with the side during the recent Six Nations tournament. Lancaster has been given the full-time head coach position until 2016, meaning he'll be the man at the helm when the World Cup takes place in England in 2015. The 42-year-old was chosen ahead of former South Africa and Italy coach Nick Mannett. He won 4 of 5 matches in the Six Nations, and his first assignment as permanent coach will be a tour of South Africa later this year.
Yeah, I think it will get tougher for us. I think it's getting tougher for all the Northern Hemisphere sides who are heading to the Southern Hemisphere. But if we want to be in a position by 2013, 2014, we've got a side ready that's going to win in 2015, we have to take on these challenges, and we can't go there with the mindset that we're making up the numbers or we're going there just to compete. You know, we want to go there to compete and win, and you know, we want to make sure we take on the challenge in the right way, respect the challenge, but equally I think it's exactly the right thing for us to do. And in terms of the development of this group and the journey that we're on, it'll be a great benchmark for us to see where we're at.
Finally, some golf news, and Ireland's Peter Lawrie shot a course record 64 to take the first round lead at the Sicilian Open. The 38-year-old from Dublin carded 9 birdies in his round with just 1 bogey as he finished the day on 8 under par. That was enough for a 1-shot lead over a trio of players. Lawrie's only previous victory on the European Tour was at the Spanish Open in 2008. One of the trio chasing him on 7 under is the Dane Soren Kjeldsen, who briefly held the course record after his opening round of 65. In Texas, Sweden's Carl Pettersson opened with a round of 65. At the Houston Open, the 34-year-old missed the cut at the last 2 events he's played on the PGA Tour. He was joined on 7 under by the big-hitting Argentine Angel Cabrera, who birdied the final hole. The pair share the clubhouse lead after rain forced the day to come to a premature end. And that is just about all we have time for on this edition of Sport Today. I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.
Good morning. It really has been glorious, the weather over the last week or so. We know it can't last forever. Unfortunately, it's going to change as we move towards the weekend. So one more sunny day today. If you can make the most of it, my advice is do so, because the satellite picture already shows a bit of an invasion of cloud up into the far northwest by the end of Thursday. That's going to continue to push steadily south and east, infringing across the far northwest of England and North Wales for dawn. And we'll also see a little bit of cloud just pushing in onto those North Sea coasts. Again, another chilly start under some clearer skies, and a little bit of patchy mist and fog around first thing, not set to last at all though. So as we start our day, there will be more cloud, and that cloud thick enough into the far north and west of Scotland for a little bit of drizzle, unfortunately. Here it will stay pretty grey throughout the morning. Temperatures 6 or 7 degrees. Into eastern areas of Scotland, again, you'll see some sunshine. So a bit of a west-east divide across northern England. The northwest through the Lake District and down into North Wales will start off cloudy and grey, and it may take its time in that cloud from burning back and some sunshine coming through. Central and eastern areas, yes, starting off rather nippy, but again, gloriously blue sky, sunshine, a beautiful day in prospect. Now, as the day does continue, that cloud will slowly start to burn back towards the coast, and we will see a brighter, sunnier afternoon progressing, but maybe Western Scotland and Northern Ireland keeping some cloud, and here a disappointing feel to things in comparison to recent days. You can see the brighter greens here denoting the cooler feel to things, around 14 degrees. We still keep the warm yellows and oranges, which means 21 degrees as a high, perhaps into the southeast corner. Now, the high pressure continues to drift off into the Atlantic, and it's allowing a northerly flow to come down. A weak weather front will bring more cloud rather than rain as it pushes across the country, but it will certainly introduce a different feel to our weather. We've been seeing temperatures perhaps into the low 20s over the last few days, a significant drop in the feel of things as we move towards the weekend and into Monday. We'll see temperatures around the average for the time of year. So on Saturday, you'll notice the difference from the word go. It's going to be a cloudy, grey old start to our day, slowly brightening up in one or two spots like West Wales or far northeast, but temperatures 11 to 14 degrees. There's a greater chance of seeing a little more sunshine perhaps on Sunday, but those temperatures still disappointing, and it will feel noticeably cooler than of late. Take care.
The guy's totally obsessed by bikes. That's all he ever thinks about. Right. You know, it's London he's mayor of. It's not Prompton.
They might be interested in linking up the Jubilee with the whole 2012 thing.
Jubilympics. Love this.
Jubilympic torch.
Man, the Jubilympic 100 metres final. Jubilympic opening ceremony.
Right, OK.
Jubilympic-athlon.
Can you stop it, please?
Brand new, award-winning 2012 starts tonight at 10 on BBC2.
How long is the big squeeze on our pockets going to go on? Why is our money used by the government to prop up banks? And as some Eurozone countries need bailing out, how does that affect us? So much is happening in the global economy, and we're here to help you make sense of it all. You can learn more about these and other big questions at bbc.co.uk/global economy.
The story of Titanic isn't about the ship.
He was a wonderful draftsman, but by Jove, he was a great papa.
He had incredible bravery.
My great-grandfather lived under the shadow of doubt.
He would wake up screaming in the middle of the night.
It's about the people.
Titanic with Len Goodman, Friday at 8:30 on BBC One and BBC One HD.
Hello and welcome once more to another session from BBC Learning Zone. In the next 3 hours we'll have a selection of programmes for schools. Later, it's Christmas on the Charles Dickens Show at 3:30. Then there's a chance to experience life in other countries. In My Shoes visits Germany, Holland and also China. First though, the tough reality of gang culture, as we hear from both members and the police about the impact of gangs on society.
In London alone, there are 250 recognised gangs, and an estimated 4,500 young people caught up in gang culture.
It's the streets, the violence, it's just part of the life, innit?
Crime and territorial disputes underpin the violence of gang lifestyles.
It's post-Cold War, you get me? When I'm going to Tottenham, I had to pull out my shank.
But for many, injury, even death, or a life spent in the penal system are the real outcomes.
The best part of their life is spent in a prison, and people say that it's a holiday camp. Well, it's not a holiday camp.
For families caught up in the violence, the pain is never ending.
It's every day, every moment, every minute. We miss him. We really miss him.
There's hundreds of people, you know, instantly affected by one murder.
And I'm a new me, and I'm a new me, and I'm a new me. Still full front, that's me.
Gang members carry out half of all shootings in the capital, 22% of all serious violence, and 14% of rapes.
It's the streets. You've got to be violent. Out here, yeah, the violence, it's just like, it's just part of the life, innit? Like you're on the road, you're mixing with certain people, you're selling drugs, whatever, maybe you're holding a gun for this guy, whatever. So it's gonna come with it, innit?
In recent times, gang shootings, stabbings, and murders have propelled gang culture into the mainstream. Here, gangs and those caught up and affected by the lifestyle reveal the impact and the consequences of gang life.
When you're young, you start doing small crimes and you start getting minor crimes and it starts getting bigger and bigger.
You don't all of a sudden wake up and say, today I'm going to join a gang. It gradually happens. Like, you don't all of a sudden just say, yeah, now I'm in a gang, they're recruiting me, they're coming to my school and recruit me. These are your friends. These are your friends, and then it just evolves into like, oh yeah, now we're a gang because we've been labelled a gang.
The friction between rival gangs protecting their areas often boils over into violence.
It's post-Cold War, you get me? So it's not really, it's a community war, innit? You get me? N18, N9, you get me? If you're from N9, you got beef with N18, Tottenham against Edmonton.
Weapons such as guns or knives, known as shanks, are often used.
Like, I can't lie, I used to move with older people, like I had to walk with my shank because I had no choice, you get me? Because if I didn't, I get rushed. I know people, they can't even go and sit down in a restaurant. Because they sit down in a restaurant, their head's getting licked off. You get what I'm saying?
Government figures show that knifings and other violent crimes are actually on the decrease, thanks to concerted efforts by the police and other agencies to target gangs.
We as police are going to come and look for you if you're into that criminality. You know, we are one of the most effective when it comes to surveillance and, you know, covert operations. You will be found out. And then when you're inside and doing whatever time, you got a lot of opportunities to think, I should have done it differently.
Away from the streets and in jail, former gang members can find prison a tougher place to be than on the road.
I got involved in a gang when I was about 14, 15. First it was just fights, hand fights and that, you know, punching and that. Went to knives and then guns and that's it, and it escalates from there. I wasn't thinking about the consequences, you know. It was just there, the adrenaline, the good life, you know, the money was there, chains, the attention from the females, you know. Everything's going good. I wouldn't think, no, this can't happen, innit? You can't get arrested. Do you know what I'm saying?
I've been in jail twice now. This is my second time in jail. It's not really a place where I want to be. It's no holiday camp when you got no freedom. You're banged up most of the day. Your freedom's stripped down and it's totally different.
Obviously, at first it was tough, but the experience in jail is not good, you know, away from family and that. People think it's cool, but it's not.
When my family come to see me, it's very hard at times. I'm happy to see them because I don't get to see them very often. But when they actually leave from here and go home, I feel very saddened by that fact that I'm not able to go back with them.
It made me realise like, who my real friends are, you know. Like, I don't talk to none of them no more. When I came to jail, they said, yeah, we got your back and all this. We'll be there to the end. A couple months down the line, they're all gone.
When you're in jail, you're more or less a ghost, innit? Like, forgotten basically. My friends used to write to me, but the contact has died out.
Prison is only one price that active gang members might have to pay.
The rate of people involved in gangs and negative peer groups ending up in prison or mental asylum or the morgue is extremely highly increased because of that activity. So, you know, you might be cutting short your life expectancy.
For some, an early and violent death is another aspect of the lifestyle they have to consider. A current and active North London gang, Them Africans, reflect on the pain of losing friends.
This is the life everyone lives. Obviously no one chose to live this life. When I was a baby, I never said, yeah, when I get older, I'm going to be involved in a gang. No way.
It's more than it looks like. It's not happy times every time, innit? You get me? So you could lose your loved ones. You know what I'm saying? I've lost my loved one, but got to carry on living in it, get me?
Because my friends, that's because they were involved in it, to be honest with you. And that's not good, man. They were too young to die for that, man. They were way too young.
Losing friends to gang violence is tough, even for gang members.
To be honest with you, when I heard Niggas died, I was so angry. I just want to go there and do it myself. But then if I went there, then I would be next, to be honest with you. It's too much, man.
Gang-related deaths have decreased in recent years. But despite the reduction, communities and families who lose children continue to be affected by the murders of their loved ones.
What we've got here, got a graffiti monument to local people who died from gun and knife crime recently. And at the top left, we've got Vendog, that's venomous, who died just there from gun crime.
Jonathan Matondo, aka Venomous, was in a gang. In October 2007, he was shot in the head and murdered as he attempted to escape from a rival gang that had come to his house to kill him. His childhood friend, Viper, recounts what happened.
On the night, there was a group of people here, and somebody came and fired shots, and they tried to run, and numerous shots were fired, and one got Jonathan in the head, and that's where it hit him, and he died there.
Although the friends had gone their separate ways since Jonathan had become involved in gang life, his death was still a huge shock.
I wasn't as close to him as I would have liked to at the time he died. And for the local area, it was sad because he was 16, another young kid shot over nothing really, and a life wasted. So it was just sad for everybody really. Like growing up in this area, I've had lots of people who went down the other way to me, and if all your friends that you're around are doing that kind of stuff, it's quite easy to get dragged into it.
But many parents of young people caught up in gang culture are unaware that their children are involved.
We did find out that Jonathan was in a gang when he was dying. When he died, we were told by the police that he was living double life. But when he was alive, why you didn't tell us so that we could do more? What happened to Jonathan, us as a family, that was a big loss. It was a very, very big loss.
It's every day, every moment, every minute we think about him. We lost, really, we miss him. We really miss him.
There he is here on his knee, big lanky legs.
I look so weird there.
For mothers and families left to pick up the pieces, it can take years to come to terms with the loss of a child. Teresa Cave's son, Christopher, was beaten and stabbed 19 times by a gang as he defended a friend who was being intimidated by gang members.
He was stabbed in both legs. He was stabbed through the back first. He was stabbed to the palms of the hands in defence, the soles of his feet. He was bottled in the back. He was kicked to the groin. He was punched to the brain, and he'd been left to die in a pool of blood on a stairwell. And the shock, because I didn't expect that, to greet me at the hospital. And I took him into my arms. And they'd closed his eyes for me. And there was a bandage on here. And I examined his body. And he had 19 wounds on his body. And he was still warm. I could feel him. He was still warm. Sorry. See, it never goes away. It never ever leaves you. But that's how you expect. That's how you find them. That's life. That's reality, and that's how we found him. He did nothing wrong. He had a good job. He had a lot of friends. He'd never been in trouble with the police in his life. He despised drugs and violence in every shape or form, and yet still he was the victim of a knife crime. The pain goes on forever. I mean, it's 9 years for Christopher. To me, it's yesterday, because I still wake up in yesterday, and I can't wake up in tomorrow. I never ever can.
Okay then guys, so welcome to today's session. The thing that we're going to be looking at today is goals in your offending.
Whether it's a gang-related death, violent attack, or robbery, a spell in jail gives those caught time to reflect on the damage they have caused.
Would you be happy for your goal to be money? That's a reason why it happened. Okay, if you could move to goal for me, please.
When you come to prison, you have a lot of time to think. I think you kind of put yourself in the shoes of your victim and just think, what would I have done? How would I have felt if I was that guy's mother or father or whatever? It doesn't feel good. You know, I can kind of see like why people really want prisoners to suffer. I can understand it.
Thank you.
The realisation that it weren't really the best thing in life was really sitting down in jail, getting knocked back on parole because I was involved in gang fights and I was still associated with old gang peers and whatnot, and sitting down for years, my family just out there and I'm in there, so the penny just dropped, if you like, and I realised it's not really where I want to be. I don't really want to be sitting down in jail for the rest of my life.
So we've put a few questions up here, and those are, what do you want to achieve? What was your reason behind it?
Now I've been here in jail for 3.5 years, there's a lot of time to think, you know, like it wasn't worth it at all, and basically greed got to my head, and that's why I didn't stop in it. So if I stopped, I wouldn't have been in jail. You know what I mean? I got family out there that are paying for my mistakes, and they're suffering more than me.
When you prove that loyalty.
The short-term gains seem all well when you're actually out, but the long-term cost of gang life it's not worth it at all. You'll get into lots of conflict. People you know will either be in jail for the rest of their life, or some people pass away. The trauma and everything you go through is just not worth it at all.
The government have recently cracked down heavily on gangs. Anyone present during a gang-related crime can be charged with joint enterprise for the offence. The police are also making examples of infamous groups, so more gang members are being prosecuted and jailed. Terry Thomas is leaving jail after serving a 5-month sentence for a knife offence. The experience was a powerful wake-up call for him.
3 people committed suicide whilst I was in there. I found it was a wake-up call. And you realise there's more to life than this culture. If you're continuing to be in criminal activities for the rest of your life, eventually you're going to get caught. And to escape that, you've got to be strong-minded. But it's a way of life for people. That's all people know, but you can get away from it, you can. You've got to be strong and focus on yourself. And stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking about you. That's the real challenge.
But the friends of murdered gang member Jonathan Matondo have found a positive way to move beyond the shadow cast by his death and the gang culture that has damaged their local community.
But do like just some normal bars as well, innit? Go on then.
Their music project offers a space for young people to be safe and off the streets.
R.I.P. Jonathan, miss never forgotten. Yo, listen. Yo, often the one that talks grease behind my back. I back plenty of your mans in war, but the fear bar never got that back. So I don't want to hear no talk from them man back how they back beef and trap. Yo. Do that again, though. I definitely feel that somebody needs to do more for these youth to keep them off the street and keep the mind occupied on things that are more positive. And I guess like Jonathan's death also is the kind of thing that makes me how I am now, where I will try and do as much as I can for my people around me. I mean, we can't help everybody, but anybody that does reach out to them, we do kind of like try and do what we can to help them. And the flow I draw for is cold, and the flow you draw for is do.
For all of us, there's a call to action for all of us to say, listen, what can we do to mentor, to encourage young people, to nurture them in a way where they think, okay, there is a way out. You don't have to go down that road. And you need to know the risks that go with those choices.
Shegan is 13 and from South London. For the last 2 years, his life has been endangered by the local gangs that control his area. But despite the gang violence that surrounds Shegan, he still feels the need to mix with those that are in and are affiliated